What's up? Today we're going to talk about how to help your narrator hate you just a little bit less. Now, it's possible that your narrator doesn't hate you yet, but if you do the things that I'm going to talk about in this video, the day is coming. So let's see how we can avoid that. I'm going to give you 5 tips for the care and feeding of your narrator. Number 1, forewarn your narrator of any accents or distinctive ways of speaking a character might have. This ought to be obvious, but we don't always remember to do such things. A story that one of my narrators told me, early in his career, he was producing an indie audiobook. He got about 3/4 of the way through, and the author finally got around to disclosing that the protagonist had an English accent. Well, we'll put aside the fact that that's just terrible writing to do that so late in the game, and think about the fact that this narrator had to go back and reproduce all of that work. That's a lot of work. And yes, it's typical that a narrator will read through a book, but you can't expect them to catch every little bit of minutia, especially if you bury it toward the end or if it gets only a single mention. If it's important to you, then it's important enough to let them know ahead of time. Number 2, provide phonetic pronunciations for any potentially problematic words. These could be character names that are unfamiliar. They might be words that are not in English, assuming your narrator is English and your work is English. They might be regional pronunciations. For example, I'm from Georgia, where Lafayette is pronounced Lafayette. In Kentucky, Versailles is pronounced Versailles. And in the Cibola National Forest, the locals pronounce it Cibola. Help your narrator out with these details. Because at the end of the day, it's really not their job to stop and constantly look up pronunciations for every word with which they're unfamiliar. It's just not a reasonable burden. These are voice actors. Would you do that to a screen actor? Imagine you have to constantly call cut so the actor could go find a dictionary and figure out how to pronounce a word. Doesn't work that way. And here's the reality of the situation. If you don't give them advance notice of how to work with these words, yes, they might get some of them right, but they're not going to get them all right. And you're going to be stuck with 2 choices. Option number 1 is to ask them to go back and reproduce many, many passages. However many things you failed to let them know about, they're going to have to re-record those. It's sort of like if you've addressed all of your editor's notes, turned in your finished manuscript, and they say, oh, wait, I got some more things. I need you to go back through the entire book because I forgot to tell you. Or I could have told you, but I didn't feel like it. That wouldn't make me happy, wouldn't make you happy, not going to make your narrator happy. So do a little work, give them advance notice. Otherwise, option number 2 is simply to leave all of those mispronunciations in your audiobook, which is not ideal. Number 3, provide character insights. Is this character based on a real person? Give the producer a note. For example, in a book that Alan Baxter and I wrote recently called Crocolypse, one of the notes I gave was this character was Mel Gibson during his drunken arrest video. Pretty simple. We know how he behaves, how he talks. It gives your producer the vibe. If the character has a certain manner about them, if they have a general attitude or motivation, even if not everything translates straight into the audiobook, letting your voice actor know what these characters are like, even visuals. Maybe there's an actor you've based this character on. 2 of our characters in Crocolypse were based on characters from the Tiger King. And in case our producer didn't know the Tiger King, I gave little links to quick YouTube videos so they could very quickly see what this character looked like, sounded like, how they interact. All of these things can be helpful for a narrator, voice actor to produce a fully fleshed out character. Number 4, avoid tongue twisters. Watch out for your troubled phrases. Earlier, one of my headings was provide phonetic pronunciations for potentially problematic words. No way would I put that into a manuscript because that's something they could stumble over. So just as ideally we read dialogue aloud to make sure it sounds natural, read your narrative aloud too. It's going to, first of all, help you catch things that are difficult to say. And also it has the added benefit of you can catch mistakes that way. So just keep your narrator in mind. Don't necessarily do it during the first draft, but during your revisions, consider smoothing out some of the more difficult to speak passages. And number 5, create a production notes document. Put all of these things together along with any other notes, insights, things that you want to communicate to your producer, and do it up front. With Crocolypse, which I mentioned, it was an 8-page document, but it was pretty spaced out. Broken down, I gave some notes in advance on the vibe of the book, what we were looking for, where we were concerned, where we weren't. And then as we went through, anytime a new character appeared, I told a little bit about them, what's their nationality, what's their accent, what's their manner of speaking, included those difficult to pronounce words, all the things we talked about. Do this, and your narrator might not love you, but they'll like you just a little bit more. And in conclusion, just want to remind everybody that we're at a point in the publishing industry where there is an absolute glut of content out there, which means that the good narrators and producers pretty much have their pick of who they want to work with. Don't be the person whom they reject because you're difficult to work with. So I hope this has been helpful.